What is the last video that I wore my hair down? Because every time I wear my hair down, I have issues with it. I'm never gonna cut my hair, but having it down is very problematic. Okay, anyway. Hello Friendzies, welcome back to my channel. We are on our last video of my booktube themed month. And this is the last video before we have our spooky month. Next week will be October. It'll be the annual Halloween haul, spoiler alert. And I want to talk about something that connects both. That's a weird way of saying it. Anyway, I want to talk about some of my favorite, spooky books. Now, when I say spooky, I need to define my version of spooky, right? So my favorite kind of spooky, scary, aesthetic Halloween vibes is a combination, and I'm sure when I say this, everybody will completely understand what I'm talking about, but it's a combination of the 1990s Addams Family movies, Scary Godmother Halloween Spooktacular, that song I'm Sleeping with a Vampire, The Little Vampire, that old movie, obsessed with it. The Descendants movies, that kind of vibe of villain backstory, everything. It's that kind of vibe. I very much like things that are considered kid and middle grade horror, spookiness, mystery, thriller kind of vibes, but specifically that age range of any form of media, books, TV shows, anything. The show Spooksville, that used to be on Netflix, R.L. Stein's A Haunting Hour, that TV show. Very much that vibe, because, Coraline, I am that bitch that watched Coraline for the first time and was very scared by it. Corpse Bride, has elements of it that, used to give me the heebie-jeebies, somebody that uses the term heebie-jeebies. I'm that kind of person for spooky and scary. I have some books that I want to show you that fit that vibe, because if you're similar to me and want to read some books that fit that kind of vibe, I have some for you. Let's get into it. I'm gonna show you my graphic novels first because I have 3 graphic novels and 3 traditional books, so we're gonna get into it. The first one I have is Garlic and the Vampire by Bree Paulson, and I've talked about this book in my graphic novel Rex video, but I'm gonna read you the back one more time in case you've missed that video. Garlic feels as though she's always doing the wrong thing. No matter how much her friend Carrot and kindly witch Agnes encourage her, Garlic just wants to tend to her own garden where it's nice and safe. But when the village of vegetable people learns that a bloodthirsty vampire may have moved into the nearby castle, they all agree that, despite her fear and self-doubt, Garlic is the obvious choice to confront him. And with everyone counting on her, Garlic reluctantly agrees to face the mysterious vampire. With humor, heart, and an unusual heroine with more courage than she realizes, Bree Paulson's debut graphic novel is a farm-fresh tale that reminds readers to believe in themselves and that strangers are not always as scary as they might seem. So this one is not as spooky, scary themed for the story, but because it involves a beautiful, lovely witch lady, hold on, let me see if I can get a good frame of the witch. Give me one sec. There's a kindly witch lady with talking vegetables and her crow familiar, and there's a vampire guy, because it has supernatural elements of it, but not necessarily a scary story. This is one that I recommend, and this was one that, I don't know if I've told this story already, I probably did, but when I bought this at the Barnes & Noble, there was a really pretty girl behind the counter, and she was very cute and very excited about Garlic and the Vampire. So I went home and read it pretty much immediately because the pretty girl was excited about it. If nothing, I am incredibly gay and easily swayed by pretty girls. The next book I had, we just talked about in my book haul from 2 weeks ago, Life of Melody by Mari Costa. Very cute. Again, not as spooky, scary in theme, but supernatural elements with a beastman named Bon and a fairy godfather called Razmataz, and a cute little human baby that gets influenced by them. Again, I will read you the back of this if you missed the haul video. 2, Supernatural, Men and a Baby. A human child abandoned in the woods is discovered by an unlikely pair, Razmataz, a fairy godfather, and Bon, a beast man. After quarreling over the best way to handle the child, they finally agree to co-parent in the human world, for now at least. What the two men don't expect is the little arrangement will push them to discover more about themselves and more about each other, which might result in love. In this charming LGBT plus rom-com, one temporary magical family might just become real. Very cute, very exciting. These are more on like Scary Godmother's Halloween Spooktacular, The Little Vampire. These are more that kind of side of my spooky, scary aesthetic interest. I'm trying to make this make sense, and I hope what I'm saying is making sense. Anyway, the next book I have is called Seance Tea Party by Ramina Yi. I hope I'm saying that name right. Growing up is terrible. No one has time to play outside or use their imagination or do anything fun. Who wants that? Not Laura. She's determined to still have fun even after her friends all seem to fade away with their new interests and new friends. A magical tea party introduces Laura to Alexa, the ghost that haunts her house. Alexa will be a kid forever, but what will happen as Laura continues to get older? Absolutely obsessed with this book. I had such a fun time reading it because it was very extremely relatable. I am 100% Laura, and it was really... I cried reading this. I absolutely cried because, like, look at her. She just, like, wants to dress up as a little witch and live her life, but then she does age and become older and her interests change, and it's kind of scary and terrifying. So, like, heavily relating to Laura and heavily relating to Alexa, and that's just it. It's a spooky, scary ghost girl who is just trying to live her life and be, like, Casper level. Oh, that's another, like, movie media piece, the like Wendy and Casper, that's another one, or just the original Casper movie with Christina Ricci. That's my whole aesthetic right there. Anyway, from the graphic novels, we're moving on to the more traditional books, and I'm going to actually pick from the bottom of my pile because this is going to be a blast from the past. I'm sure you can tell, I'm sure everything about me screams this, but I'm going to tell you anyway. I'm a former emo kid. I was the black hoodie with safety pins attached to the sleeves emo kid back in middle school, and this was a book that I read religiously. I don't remember what year it was. I think there were only 3 or 4 books at the time, but I read what was available from this series at the time, and I ended up not liking the other books as much as I liked the first one. But I want to talk about Vladimir Tod. The Chronicles of Vladimir Tod, and this was the first one, and it's called 8th Grade Bites by Heather Brewer. Shout out to the other Heathers in the world. Hello, hello. Where's your little synopsis? Oh my god, look at this. The synopsis is in here for a paperback. Vladimir Tod, normal 8th grade student or powerful vampire? Junior high really stinks for 13-year-old Vladimir Tod. Bullies harass him, the principal is dogging him, and the girl he likes prefers his best friend. Oh, and Vlad has a secret. His mother was human, but his father was a vampire. With no idea of the extent of his powers and no one to teach him, Vlad struggles daily with his blood cravings and his enlarged fangs. When the strange substitute teacher begins to question him a little too closely, Vlad worries that his cover is about to be blown. But when he realizes he has a much bigger problem, he's being hunted by a vampire killer who is closing in fast. This first book in this ghoulishly funny series leads readers on a nail-biting adventure that is filled with dark characters and mystical glyphs, secret identities and hidden agendas, unearthly powers, and teen angst. Think of all the media I've told you about that's very spooky scary, and think about the fact that I was an emo middle schooler. This was everything to me. This was my lifeblood. I was absolutely obsessed with this book, and it is very like middle school vampires. It was, and I was definitely one of the kids that was like, I still have never seen or read the Twilight series, and I don't think I am ever going to. I'm so sorry. It's not the superiority complex that I used to have in middle school, because when I was in middle school I didn't want to read it because of my superiority complex. It's just not something I think I'm going to be interested in pretty much ever. Similar to the Harry Potter books, forget the fact that J.K. Rowling's a TERF and just a horrible fucking person, but it's just not something I think that I want to sit through the thick volumes of Twilight and Harry Potter to read through, especially now that I have enough knowledge of both of them to get by. This was my Twilight. This was my Twilight. Vladimir Tod. There's another book too that is similar to this in kind of like vibes and like teenager being supernatural, being non-human, kind of discovering and dealing with that. It was called The Replacements. I forgot what it's by. Or The Replacement. Similar book, very funny, very like, I don't know if you would be super interested in it now because it very much reads middle school vampire. But when I read it, it was the opportune time for me to do it because I've always wanted to be a vampire growing up. Watching The Little Vampire when I was as little as I always wanted to be the creepy little vampire kid, so. Where's my Tony Thompson, you know? Another book that is not, well, it's not spooky scary. It's a little more fantasy than it is like horror, mystery, thriller, but I still think it fits in with my kind of like idea of spooky scary. The Bookshelf of Dust and Dreams by Mindy Thompson. I finished this book. I finished this book at like 2 in the morning, got out of bed, brought it over to the part of the kitchen table where my mom sits and left this like on her placemat because she needed to read it pretty much immediately. I randomly picked this up at Barnes & Noble, as I have said in my book haul video. I 100% judge books by their cover. Randomly picked it up at Barnes & Noble, cried hysterically the whole time reading it. It's 1944, Sutton, New York, and Poppy's family owns and runs Rhyme and Reason, a magical bookshop that caters to people from all different places and time periods. Though her world is ravaged by World War II, customers hail from the past and the future, infusing the shop with delightful mix of ideas and experiences. Poppy's dream is of someday becoming shopkeeper like her father, though her older brother Al is technically next in line for the job. She knows all of the rules handed down from one generation of shopkeeper to the next, especially their most important one. They must never use the magic for themselves. But when Al's best friend is killed in war and her brother wants to use the magic of the shop to save him, with her father in the hospital suffering from a mysterious illness, the only one standing between Al and the bookstore is Poppy. Caught between her love for her brother and her loyalty to her family, she knows her brother's actions could have devastating consequences that reach far beyond the bookshop. As an insidious, growing darkness looms, the decision is bigger than Poppy ever dreamed, and the fate of the bookstore hangs in the balance. This was so good, and it fits because it's magical, it's fantastical, and not really horror. It kind of does get spooky. It gets kind of like Lazarus Experiment in the end, and the last like 5 to 6 chapters of the book very much like punches you in the face. You're absolutely devastated. You get a calm before the storm. You get punched in the face one more time, and then the way the book wraps up, you're just like, I'm just supposed to be okay with that? Very, very good book. And it's so darling. Like, look at this. This is absolutely precious. I loved this book so much. Like, 10 out of 10, fully recommend. As I'm doing this too, I'm thinking maybe I should have included the other books that now I'm like thinking of. So I'm going to put them here. I'm going to put The Replacements here. And I forgot what the other one is called, but I'm going to put it here. I know which book I'm thinking of, but I forgot what it's called. These 2 books as well I want to suggest for this like theme. Both of these are older. They're like YA, I guess you would call them. And they're like horror, supernatural vibes. One of them is vampires. One of them is fae. So if you want to check those out as well. The last book I have, I talked about, I think it was my book haul video or it was one before that. I don't remember. But I talked about that book by that, the girl of the Nazi YouTuber guy. Right? I talked about that book. And I said while I was talking about that book that I read a book once where it fucked me up really bad. And I flipped to the back of it just to like try to learn about this author because what the fuck. And it was like, oh, this author enjoys writing middle grade. And I was like, how is this considered middle grade? This is the book. Skeleton Tree by Kim Ventrella. Kim, what the fuck? This is, yeah, Skeleton Tree. This book fucked me up. It's not even that big. Look at this book. It is Kim Ventrella, a children's librarian and a lover of weird, whimsical stories of all kinds. She lives in Oklahoma City. Skeleton Tree is her debut novel. Loves a children's librarian, and she writes this shit. It's only 229 pages long, and this is, it's ooky spooky. It's ooky spooky, and it is upsetting. So, there are lots of things that grow in backyards. Bones aren't one of them. 12-year-old Stanley knows the bone growing in his yard is a little weird, but that's okay, because now he'll have the perfect photo to submit to the Young Discoverers competition. With such a unique find, he's sure to win the grand prize. But oddly, the bone doesn't appear in any photos. Even stranger, it seems to be growing into a full skeleton that only children can see. That's just one person. There's just one person who doesn't find any of this weird. Stanley's little sister, mischievous Mirren adopts the skeleton as a friend, and soon the two become inseparable playmates. When Mirren starts to grow sick, Stanley suspects that the skeleton is responsible and does everything in his power to drive the creature away. However, Mirren is desperate not to lose her friend, forcing Stanley to question everything he's ever believed about life, love, and the mysterious forces that connect us. I had a lot of emotions. Oh, and like look at the back, look at the fucking spooky butterfly. Stanley only stopped once to look back at the bones. Maybe it was his imagination, but once he could have sworn the finger twitched, like it wanted him to come closer. He remembered feeling that he had when he had first saw the bone, like nothing would ever be the same again. The bone changed things. No matter how hard he might try, he could never come back to before. Very ooky spooky. Like, heavily supernatural, not really, like, monsters and everything, but heavily supernatural, and just, like, it fucked me up. It fucked me up a lot. And this person is a children's librarian, and you wrote this, and it ruined my life. So thank you for that, Kim. Like I said, those I picked, and I don't regret picking those off my bookshelf to recommend to you guys for that, like, brand of spookiness. But as I was recommending them, I was thinking of other ones, like, ones that closely better relate to Vladimir Tod, because this, I would say, is between the other ones that I listed and the ones I'm thinking of off my bookshelf. So like the Bad Girls Don't Die series, The Replacement, the other book that I can't remember the name of, it's like The Dark Secret, or like The Dark something. And again, I'll put a picture up here so you can look into it, but those are also very good. The Bad Girls Don't Die series is like it's on the like other side of the scale where it did actually like make me kind of scared, where other people would read it and be like, okay, like it's not scary at all, but to me it really scared me. The Replacement is not as scary, but it just makes you very unsettled the entire time that you read it, and I absolutely adored that book. And the other book that, again, I can't remember the name, is more scary. Again, it's vampire themed, and it is a book that when I read it, I had like the perfect imagery in my head. And I don't remember specifically if the author wrote it with like very descriptive like things for the places and people that you see, but I feel like when I read that book, I had the perfect images of these characters and these places in my brain, so that's always a fan favorite of mine. I love books that make me feel like I'm right there. So, thank you guys so much for watching. Please leave a like if you enjoyed, and if you have read any of these books or plan to read any, please let me know down in the comments, because like I said, these are some of my favorite Addams Family, Wendy and Casper, The Little Vampire, Spooksville, R.L. Stine's A Haunting Hour, Scary Godmother, Halloween Spooktacular, like themed books. I think all of these would fit in that kind of vibe universe, so let me know if you enjoyed them. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye! Am I explaining any of this well? I hope so.